You might think you know what courage is. Maybe you picture a soldier on the battlefield, a firefighter running into a burning building, or a lone protester standing before a tank. But let me ask you this. What if courage was quieter than you thought? What if real courage is what happens when your hands tremble, your chest tightens, your voice shakes, and you still take a step forward? I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. That line, attributed to Nelson Mandela, isn't just inspiring, it's unsettling. Because it demands we confront the truth. Fear will always be there, but what defines us is how we rise above it. Let me take you back to a night in Jerusalem, one not recorded in any official gospel, but told through whispers, passed from tongue to ear for generations. The city slept, but one man couldn't. His name was Levi, a tax collector, despised, mocked, seen as a traitor. He collected silver for Rome, but it had cost him gold, gold like dignity, like family, like the belief that he could still be loved. Levi had heard the rumors that a prophet from Nazareth, Jesus, was healing the broken, forgiving sinners, touching the lepers, even raising the dead. But how could someone like Levi dare approach someone so holy? Fear wrapped around his soul like a chain. He wasn't afraid of rejection. He was afraid of hope, afraid that if he let himself believe, he could be forgiven. And Jesus turned away. That rejection would destroy whatever fragment of himself he had left. So Levi stood in the shadows, night after night, watching Jesus from afar, waiting for courage that never came. Until one night, it was different. Jesus stopped. He looked directly at Levi. He said nothing, just looked. Levi froze. He wanted to run. He wanted to disappear. But then Jesus smiled. Not the smile of a king, the smile of someone who knew pain, who had tasted shame, who saw through Levi's fear and reached for the man buried beneath it. That one look broke Levi. And in that moment, Levi understood something that would change him forever. Courage is not a lightning bolt. It's not fire in the chest. Courage is the choice you make while your heart is breaking. Levi stepped forward, one step. That was all. But that one trembling step, taken in the presence of fear, not in its absence, was enough. Enough for Jesus to say, "Follow me." Now, before I continue, if this story moved you even a little, if it made you think about that one step you've been afraid to take, subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning. There's more, so much more. And in the next few moments, we'll explore how courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the whisper that says, "Try again tomorrow." Let's go deeper. Levi followed him. But don't imagine it like a glorious parade or some sacred awakening. No. The first steps of courage are never glorious. They're messy, hesitant, haunted by the ghost of what if. What if this is a mistake? What if I'm not worthy? What if he realizes who I really am? Yet Jesus walked, and Levi followed. Behind him, the city walls loomed like judges. Before him, a man who said nothing, but whose silence shouted louder than any sermon. Days passed. Levi listened, not just to the words, but to the spaces between them. He saw things. A woman caught in adultery thrown before Jesus, her shame exposed like an open wound. The crowd, hungry for blood, rocks in hand. But Jesus didn't flinch. He knelt, wrote something in the dust. No one knows what he wrote, but whatever it was, it disarmed them. And then he said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." Silence. Then, one by one, the stones dropped. Do you understand what that means? He didn't just save her life, he saved her dignity. He didn't shout, he didn't demand. He exposed their fear and overcame it with wisdom, not force. Levi, watching from the edge of the crowd, felt something stirring again. That same trembling courage, the kind that doesn't need a stage, just a moment. Later that night, Levi asked Jesus, "How did you do that? Weren't you afraid they'd turn on you too?" And Jesus said softly, simply, "Fear is loud, but truth doesn't need to raise its voice." Let that sink in for a moment. Now, if this hits you, if something inside you stirs, pause, hit subscribe. Because this isn't just a story, it's a mirror. And in a few moments, you'll see yourself in it more clearly than you ever expected. Now back to Levi. There came a day when everything changed. They were walking toward a village when a man with twisted limbs and vacant eyes stumbled into their path. The disciples recoiled. This man wasn't just sick, he was feared. Rumor said he was cursed. But Jesus? He walked straight toward him. Levi shouted, "Master, he's dangerous. He might be violent." Jesus stopped, turned, and asked a question Levi would never forget. Do you think fear makes him a monster, or has fear made him a prisoner? That line, it broke something inside Levi because suddenly he wasn't looking at the man. He was looking at himself. Years of hiding, defending, attacking first so no one could see the trembling underneath. All of it prison bars, built from fear. And yet here was Jesus reaching out, not to punish the man, but to touch him, to see his pain and heal it. And he did. The man collapsed in sobs, then silence, then stillness, then peace. And Levi understood that courage wasn't about erasing fear. It was about walking straight into it with love. No shield, no sword, just truth and grace. And that was power. That was freedom. Now let me ask you something. Yes, you watching this right now. When was the last time you did something despite your fear? Not because you were sure, not because it felt safe, but because it was right. Courage isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It whispers, I know you're scared. Do it anyway. And if you've ever felt that whisper, if you're feeling it now, don't scroll past it. Click subscribe because in part 3, we're going to look at what happens when that quiet courage becomes contagious. When one act of bravery can spark a revolution of hearts. Stay with me. There's something you need to understand. Courage is contagious. You see, it doesn't scream. It doesn't stand on stages waving flags. Real courage, it often begins in shadows, in silence, with one trembling step. But when that step is taken in truth, others follow. That's what happened to Levi. He wasn't the bravest. He wasn't the strongest. He was simply first. The first to leave his old life, the first to trust something unseen, the first to say yes when fear screamed no. And when others saw him do that, they began to wonder, could I do the same? It started small. One woman who'd been afraid to speak in public finally told her story. One man who always chose anger to hide his fear chose kindness instead. A soldier who had done terrible things dropped his weapon and wept. And a child watching from the side whispered to his mother, I want to be like him. Like him. Jesus didn't just cast out demons or calm storms. He ignited courage in everyone around him, even in his final hours. Even as he was betrayed, beaten, dragged through the streets, and nailed to a cross. He didn't fight with fists. He didn't fight with his enemies. He didn't curse his enemies. He looked them in the eye and said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Can you imagine that? In the greatest moment of suffering, when he had every right to rage, to call down fire from heaven, he chose mercy because fear breeds hate. But courage, it gives birth to grace. And grace changes everything. Now pause. Take a breath. Because I want you to hear this next part clearly. Yes, you're here right now, not by accident. This message, this journey, isn't just a story about someone else. It's a story about you. You've known fear. You've been frozen. You've kept quiet when your heart begged you to speak. You've walked away when you knew you should have stood firm. But still, you're here, which means it's not too late. You can choose courage. And no, it won't feel like thunder. It'll feel like a whisper, like a knot in your throat, like a pulse in your wrist, like a question echoing inside your soul. Is this the moment I stop running? The answer, only you can give it. But hear me. If you choose it even once, you give others permission to do the same. And then courage spreads like wildfire. So if this story has stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Don't silence it. Fuel it. Share this video. Comment what moment in your life demanded the most courage. And if this made you feel something real, subscribe. Because we're not building a channel. We're building a community of the brave, of the broken, of those who choose courage, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Let this be your moment. Don't wait for fear to leave. It won't. But courage doesn't wait for fear to vanish. Courage walks in anyway. And maybe, just maybe, this is the moment you begin. Not perfect, not fearless, but triumphant, because that's what courage really is.